Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
Welcome to the Healing Generation podcast. My name is Ariel Jimenez, and I will be one of your hosts for today's segment. Today's segment is focused on youth voice, and we're going to get an opportunity to hear from one of our community leaders who is based out of Oakland, California. But before we introduce her, I wanted to take a moment and welcome my co-host, AB, into the room. So, AB, I'll pass the palabra over to you for a sec.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as always as your co-host. I'm excited this finally happened. I was looking at the emails of how many emails we sent back and forth, and it was 56 emails to get this podcast to happen. So very happy to be here. I'm very excited to introduce our guest, Mikaela Galvis-Venegas. As you know, I don't know if you've heard any of the podcasts, but we always start with a little conocimiento, just simple questions, nothing deep, just who are you and who do you represent, and anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Mika. Mikaela. I also go by Mika. I'm from Oakland. I am a second-gen organizer, so my dad is an organizer. I was born and raised in the movement. I kind of started exploring organizing on my own outside of my dad around 14, and then really got into it. I think I just kind of dived right in. It came very naturally, of course. And so, I've been organizing for a while. I organized a walkout for the inauguration of Trump and organized a rally in 2020 for Black and Brown solidarity during the Black Lives Matter movement. And that's me.
No, thank you for that introduction. One of the things that you said was second generation movement builder, which for me, that stood out. So I want to ask you a little bit, being born in the movement, where was really your entry point into the work? Because I also know a lot of other folks that were kind of born into the movement. And then at some point, their form of resistance was to resist the movement and go in a different direction. So where was your entry point where you were fully bought in for yourself and no longer for your connection?
In high school, I kind of started going into internships with other nonprofits and was able to find my voice there. I think it's kind of hard when it's your parent to want to kind of follow in their footsteps. And even when I was in different organizations, I would always get, "Oh, you're George's daughter." And so it wasn't until I kind of began organizing myself and kind of built my own name up for my own organizing. And I think being young and also having a big platform on Instagram at the time also really helped. And so he started getting, "Oh, you're Mika's dad." And that was my own, yeah.
That's right.
And then after high school, I think, that's where it got kind of harder. I went into working with kids and was doing early childhood development in school. And I regret nothing because I absolutely love that. And I think that was also important to the work that I do now, because I think that what I learned there was a lot of indigenous teachings that came from a white man, reiterated with a lot of just the way we love our babies, the way we respect them and respect their voice. And I think it helped give me a different kind of passion for the work that I do, because I understood a lot more of the needs that we are supposed to get when we're young and we're little, and how much of us are lacking that because of the system and all the things that disrupt that and the generational traumas that come from the system. And so in 2020, when the pandemic happened and we were also seeing the wave of activism going on, and I wasn't working, so I was able to use that time to kind of figure out what I could do. And then there was an opening for a job position and I took it. And I got right back into community organizing, and that was how I got back in.
I could super relate to the first half you're saying. I'm actually the one that told Ariel that we should talk to you about this, because I'm in the exact same situation. I mean, my dad's been a part of the National Compadres Network for 20-something years now. And as soon as I got in, I was like, "Oh, you're Mario's son." And I'm like, "Nope, I'm just me." I was like, I'm doing this because I want to do this, not because of who my dad is. And I think it's hard for people to differentiate that. For me, one of the hardest things was people basically trying to say, like, you got here because of who your dad is. Like, you got your position, you got, like, all the stuff you got because, oh, Mario's your dad. So I want to ask you, did you ever run into struggles where people maybe thought less of you because who your dad is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure I definitely still do. But I think that I also had to get over some of that and like let it go because at the end of the day, I don't need to explain myself to people. I don't need to explain that there was actually a job application. I filled it out. My resume was perfectly qualified and I had experience. I had the knowledge and I earned my position without his knowledge of me even applying, you know? And I just have to let it go at this point. I had already been working with other nonprofits too. And when I started coming into this work, like it just gave me the pre-existing knowledge and for me to know that I could dive deeper into it. So that just means like I'm a movement baby. Like I was raised in this and it shifted my whole perspective of everything I ever experienced, you know, like the way a teacher sends somebody out. I'm advocating. I'm sounding like I'm a problem child, but no, like I'm telling you, you're setting a student out for disrupting, but what tools are you offering him to be able to focus, you know? Maybe if you weren't teaching a white man's history, we would be more involved. So I think that definitely was a struggle and it still comes up. And I mean, it's been years now at this point, is brushing off.
Mm-hmm. A young activist, man. That I love that because I got kicked out of school often, way too often. So I wish back then I'd had the language to be able to stand up for myself or had someone in the seat next to me that could advocate for me. So I appreciate what you do. You know, you talked about some pivotal moments, the wave of activism that came back through the pandemic, right, with the Black Lives Matter movement and all that. And I think one of the things that we learned through that is even when we're trying to fight the system, there's often times that we get re-traumatized, right? And I think two things that go parallel sometimes is not only the movement building, but also the healing movement and making sure that we're taking care of the people that are in the front lines, try to dismantle those systems. I also know that you're connected a little bit of ceremony and a little bit of traditions. Is there anything that you want to speak up in terms of what has helped you in that healing movement to allow you to show up better in your movement building?
I'm actually really grateful to work for an organization that's cultural healing based. And so we bring it into the practice of almost everything we do. So when we work with impacted families that have lost loved ones to violence in Oakland, we also offer them like, would you like danzantes to come? Would you like to like go to a sweat? When we have programs in schools, we also give them like opportunities to do some healing. I think we just do our best to kind of tie it into everything we do. And I think that's something I'm really grateful for. Like staff retreat was going to sweat or just being able to have opportunities to like sit back, kind of unwind. We had the medicine man. Do you guys know Albino Jr.?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was with Albino Sr. In New Mexico about a month ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love them. Junior came out and he ran ceremony for everybody. And then our loved ones from La Placita out in New Mexico, they came down, they offered some acupuncture to us and taught everyone how to like do limpias with herbs and with eggs. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's something that we're able to do. And I also try to do that in my life and just kind of reground ourselves in everything that we do. And then I've also apprenticed with like a cura andera and like taking courses on like how to do sobadas, because to me, I think that that's just really important to know our indigenous practices of how do we take care of ourselves? How do we feed ourselves while we fight this battle of white supremacy?
Sounds like you got a lot of ways of healing, actually.
We trying.
That's awesome. I mean, for me, I feel like my way of healing is staying home and eating junk food. So, I mean, your ways are a lot healthier than mine. But I want to go back to your work in the community in the sense of when I started really working in the community, especially at the high school we're stationed at Foothill, I was being given a lot of lessons that I didn't know I was ready to be receiving. And, one of my favorite lessons comes from one of my favorite people. His name's Edgar. And it's a sad one, but it's a happy one in a way. Basically saying that he thought men didn't receive flowers. Like the first time that happened was when a man died. So, I mean, teachings all around. So I want to ask you, has there been a teaching you learned from in the community through ceremony, through your healing that you want to bring up or lift up? No pressure.
I know I
Just
have to
one.
think about that one.
One out of like the millions that you might have already received.
I think for me, one of the biggest things was learning that we don't have to isolate when we're going through it. That was something that took time to learn because people always say like misery likes company. And so when I was feeling down, like I kind of just came to myself because I didn't want to bring the other people around me down. But I learned only in my recent years that my community, my loved ones, ceremony, all of that feeds my spirit. And when I feel like I'm down, to call them in. And having to ask for that was something that took time. Having to push myself through that, not wanting to have to bother people with my problems, not wanting to reach out to people, like telling them, hey, like, I'm not going to lie, I'm struggling right now. Can we do dinner? I just need some love around me.
I think that's definitely hard, right? And not knowing you too well, I think when we're the caretakers of our people, it's hard for us to ask for help. So when everybody comes to us, for A, B, and C, it's like, who do we go to when we need A, B, and C? Because I remember even my roommate, he sat in circle with me for the first time. And he's like, damn, dude, I didn't know you were carrying all that. Because in circle is where I feel comfortable to unload. He's like, I live with you and you haven't told me you were struggling with those. And he's like, I don't think it's fair. And I even saw this on Instagram not too long ago. He's like, I don't think it's fair that you share your laughter with me, but you don't share your tears. Like, how can I be there for you? And for me, it's like, I don't know how to do that. I know how to come to you when I'm jolly and happy and I'm ready, to be a loving spirit around you, but I don't know how to come to you when I'm not at my best. So I think there's a lot that we need to learn with what you just shared, because it's hard. I like to isolate when I'm not feeling good, and I'll come out when I feel better. But I also know that I learned that from my house, because my parents are very much like that. My sister and brother are very much like that. But even thinking about like your upbringing, thinking about your community, your culture, regardless of like the white supremacy and the traumas and everything like that, we've been able to survive, and there's a lot of beauty within that, right? So when you look at your community, when you look at your culture, what makes you most proud when you look and reflect on those journeys?
I love the way we come together. I love it with my whole heart and soul. I love the way we pull through for each other. There is nothing that unites Oakland like playing a Mac Dre song. Yep. You play a classic, we all lit. We all lit. You hear that someone passed away, you got people calling you, asking you, what do you need? I'm coming, I'm feeding you, I'm cleaning your house. You have someone that just had a baby. They're coming, they're rubbing your feet, they're changing diapers for you, they're asking if you would like a nap. I love the way my community comes together. I love the way we show up for each other and like the level of love. And I hate that sometimes it takes really deep pain or circumstances for us to come together. And I would love for us to continue to learn how to show up for each other without those circumstances coming up. But I love the way we show up for each other when we need it.
I love that answer. My mom always says it takes a village to raise a child. But I think every person in their life needs a village, no matter how old they are. I definitely can relate to that. One of my uncles just passed away, and we were really struggling to come up with the money. And all of a sudden, my mom's Venmo was full of people Venmoing her to help us even just get his ashes. So, shout out to my community. I love y'all. We've talked about healing within your community, within yourself, whatever ways you have for healing. And I feel like for me, something that I've always struggled with was the idea that, I always thought there is an end. Like, I'm going to reach a point and then I'm fully healed. But I have to like remind myself, no, it's a journey. Like, we're going to be going through this for a while. So I want to ask you, who has walked with you in your journey that you want to give a little shout out to?
My daughter is my rock. She has been by my side for absolutely everything. She's made me want to be a better person in ways that I never knew. She's made me reflect on every aspect of my life and all the different things that I want to change, like down to the smallest details that I don't even realize that to me I never saw as a problem. And because of her, like, I am just changing absolutely everything. She is going through it with me by my side, holding my hand. And I just want to give her the best so that I'm sure at some point I will mess up. I will not do something right. And that I've at least given her the tools to be able to reflect and be like, I want to be able to do that differently next time. And learn from my mistakes and also just have way more tools than I was given. Because I feel like my parents came from a lot of pain, both of them, and they still came out so much better than what they were born with. And so when I'm given so many tools, it's expected that, like, I have to be able to do the same. I have to also be better than what my parents were able to give me and give her so much more too.
Those little ones, man, they will crawl with you in that journey. They will remind you when you do wrong, but they'll also love you up when you do wrong. So my little godson will remind me when I'm not keeping my palabra, but then will still say, Nino, I still love you. And I'm like, how is this 10-year-old schooling me up on how I should be? But I love it. One of the things that you touched on, and I think that you've touched on throughout the conversation, is that intergenerational trauma, right? Trauma that gets passed on, even right now when you're talking about your parents. Really being born to a deficit and having to pull yourself out of it, that's hard. But then all of the things that you've been blessed with that now you could pass to your little one. So often we get asked this question, and I want to shout out one of our previous fellows, Ray Elliman, who says, man, you guys talk about trauma so much, but what about the blessings? Like, do we have intergenerational blessings? So how would you answer that? Do you believe in intergenerational blessings, and how does that show up for you?
Absolutely. My parents were both born in very broken homes. My mom's dad passed away from drug and alcohol abuse when she was 15. My dad grew up in a domestic violence household, and neither of them ever really had fully healthy relationships with both their parents. And it wasn't until they were older that both of them were able to reconnect, and they weren't given the proper guidance. And yet when they had me, they gave me love, they gave me guidance, they gave me support. They gave me so much more structure than they were ever able to provide. And I'm grateful because I'm my dad's oldest and my mom's second. So even when I was younger, they still didn't have it fully figured out. And it wasn't until I was about 14, 15, but that both of them had fully gotten structure and we're building towards something way bigger. I mean, both of them are homeowners now. Like, that's so amazing to me. And I'm so grateful to have seen them when I was younger, still building it, still seeing them make sacrifices. I mean, we lived with my grandma. We stayed with my mom's friend. We bounced around a little bit, but they made it work, and all of that sacrifice was to be able to give me everything that they were able to give me as I got older and what they're still able to give me today. I mean, I have a baby. If I ever needed childcare last minute, if I ever came short, I know that they would be there for me and in my corner. They'd be there answering the phone. The baby needs this, the baby needs that. I need somebody to watch her, please. And I can trust that they've done their healing work to be better grandparents than they were able to be parents, that they are able to provide, that the home is a safe home, that it's a home that has the safe necessities that she needs because she's a baby, she gets into stuff, that they're able to be present with her and give her all the love. I don't have to worry about giving them money to feed her. They're just able to provide so much for her and do so much. And they're just reliable, and they've given me so much knowledge. And what younger me was not able to receive, I'm finally seeing coming around, especially now that I'm a parent. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for what I did.
But you know what? One thing that came to mind right now, right? I don't have children of my own, but when my cousin was a sophomore in high school, he had followed into my footsteps and my brother's footsteps. So he had gotten locked up. He had gotten jumped into the neighborhood and done all that to the point where he got locked up twice. And his parents are just like, he doesn't listen to us. He shows up high. He shows up at whatever hour of the day he wants. Like, he's just not listening to us. One of you need to take him. I was living at San Jose State at the time. So I said, well, he could live with me for the 2 years he's left in high school. And I remember he started doing good because I started taking him to the libraries and he like fell in love. I'll be very honest. He fell in love with the beautiful women on campus. And all of a sudden he wanted to be at the library every day. But I remember when he went to prom, he asked me if he could borrow my car and if he could pick up his girlfriend and go to prom. And I said, yeah, go for it. Handle. Here's the keys. Be home by this time. And I remember when it was time for him to come home, his phone had died. Right. And I remember I used to do that to my mom. And I would always tell my mom, don't worry about it. Just go to sleep. Like, I'm going to be fine. I'll be home. Don't worry about me. I'm going to survive. Like, don't trip. Just go to sleep. And I remember that night I paced back and forth until 4 or 5 in the morning and I could not go to sleep. And when he got home, he was like, dude, why didn't you just go to sleep? Like, I'm good. I called my mom and I apologized. I brought her coffee. I brought her chilaquiles. I said, Mom, I love you. I am sorry. And it's just like, you don't know what you don't know. So there's just a different level. I'm like, if my little ones in the future ever did half of what I did, I don't know if I could survive those nights. I for sure need my mom next to me. I for sure need her praying to her Virgencita. I for sure might need a sweat lodge ceremony the next morning. But when you said you were a bad kid in the younger years, so was I. And I hope my nieces and nephews don't got to go through what I went through. And I hope they don't know those lessons.
That's also something that we hear too, is like generational trauma also alters our DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the way we respond to things is different because our parents pass that on. And so that's why it's also important to do a lot of the healing work, because we can fix that. We can change our cortisol levels, the way they respond. We can regulate our nervous system. We can fix our body when we do the healing work, when we take time to do that, so that our little ones are able to learn and know to respond differently, what the healed version of us would do. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so important to also work on ourselves and be able to offer that to them.
Yeah. And I think even touching on that, being able to heal backwards, right? Because our parents get that opportunity to heal. So do our grandparents. I think for me, when I saw healing was real, was when I saw my dad heal. Because the things that he did to us when we were younger, CPS would have taken us real quick now. But there's things that he hasn't yet apologized to us that he never has to apologize to my little brother. Because when it comes to my little brother, he's gentle with them. He knows how to get down on the ground and play. He knows how to go to parent-teacher conferences. He's learned so much in his own healing process, independent of me, independent of my sister. He himself put in enough work for him to show up as a grandpa to my niece now and hold her and play with her and say, you're so precious, you're so gorgeous. And yes, it makes me jealous that I didn't have that version of him, but I'm so happy for that next generation that they get to love on him in ways, and they don't get to see all the trauma that he went through either. They just get to see grandpa, they get to see dad, and they get to see him in his sacredness. And that to me is beautiful.
Yeah, there's that quote that says, raising my child better than my parents raised me, and being able to offer them more with the healed version of myself shows me what I would have been like if I hadn't had to experience that. And so I think that's a big thing for me. I didn't deal with it so much for my dad, for my mom. And I know she did the best with what she had. But seeing her and just kind of having her watch the way I engage with my daughter and her telling me, I never thought about it like that. I never knew that I could do things like that with a child or with a baby. And seeing the different ways that she's developed, the rate that she's developed versus the way I developed is different. I think that the reflection has also been big for me, and her just validating me and also telling me she's proud of the way I'm parenting my daughter, and just that she's grateful that me and my sister have both taken the time to kind of learn how to do things differently so that we're able to do so much more. And I have to remind her, like, you gave us that opportunity. When you gave us better than what you had, like, you paved the way for us to also be able on a better path to be able to learn more.
I feel like you always got to be grateful. I love hearing my parents' story, even if it isn't the happiest story, because it definitely shows me and reminds me of how many blessings I have in life. Like, sure, I go through my own stuff, but, you know, their blessings towards me, I could never thank them enough, even if it came with a little trauma. um,
No, for real.
a little yelling. It's okay. I cry at night, but it's okay. I'm just playing. So this next question I'm going to ask you is one of my favorite questions to ask, and I'm hoping for Christmas Ariel gets it for me on a shirt because I ask it every single podcast. And the question is, if you had a microphone, and this microphone, everyone can hear what you're saying on this microphone in the whole world, what is one issue you would like to lift up?
I think the biggest thing I would want to lift up is decolonize, unlearn white supremacy, and relearn our ancestral teachings.
Mm.
I think that is the biggest thing. That's something we can apply to Palestine. That's something we can apply to mass incarceration. That's something we can apply to the way the school system is corrupted and broken, the way everything is going on with Big Pharma profiting off illness. Like, that applies to absolutely everything.
You ready to take that on?
Yep, I'm tussling with with the system.
Hey, you already took that on. You know, in hearing that, I remember being in Salinas for one of those conversations of how do you decolonize? And I remember my sort of Jerry saying, the first way that you decolonize is by recognizing that you yourself, the way you showed up in that skin, in your culture, with your roots, you're sacred just the way you are. And they said that is the first step to decolonize, because you can't change the system unless you change yourself first.
Yep.
And that to me was like, I was so outward with my activism that I forgot that I need to do some internal work first, that my community started at home. So my question to you is that word sacred. It's big. I've seen it thrown around a lot now. It's more common now than it was 10 years ago, 15. And both of you will feel me in this because you grew up in healing. So you all probably were told you were sacred from little ones. But people throw it around like it's nothing now. But that word sacred, I want to ask you, in your journey, when did you realize you were sacred?
Ironically, it hasn't been in the movement work. I realized that as a parent, because it was when I had taken the time to work on myself, work on the way that I respond to things, work on the way I talk to my daughter. And I don't remember exactly what the situation was, but maybe she had spilled something, and I had been telling her, be careful, be careful. She spills it. And she looks at me and she goes, Mom, take a breath and count to 4. Calm down before we talk. Like, reminding me, grounding me before I even respond. And just reflecting everything that I've been doing my best to try to show her and teach her. So I'm really grateful that I have someone that's also able to hold me accountable.
That new generation, man, there's something else. My niece is wild. She's always making sure I'm the one checking in on her. I'm always there for her. When we moved to Gilbert, it's a struggle between me and her because I was at their house like every other day, and now I rarely get to see her. But she definitely taught me I was sacred when my brother told her I was trans, and all she wondered was, well, he's still gonna love me, right? And that's all she cared about, that she had my love. And that next generation, man, they're powerful in their words without even realizing it. So I want to ask you if you have any advice that you could give our future generations, the future generations of activist warriors, what would you want to say to them?
I would say always remember to listen, but always push forward and move forward and hold us accountable too. Never forget to listen. They be forgetting to listen sometimes.
Don't worry, I still forget to listen. I don't even listen to myself. So
Same. It be taking time.
You know, but I think that's important, right? Because that next generation, sometimes they're so eager they think they have everything figured out, and they forget that there's some people that have already been there, done that. You know, there's one of our youngsters, Sam, out of Denver, who says, if you want to know about the road ahead, ask someone that's coming back. And that to me was like, oh damn! Like a lot of our elders are on their way down the hill, right? Not in a bad way, like they're not going down the hill, but you know they've lived the majority of their life on this earth already, and they have so much knowledge and wisdom that sometimes we forget to listen, to just sit and listen. And I remember Maestro Jerry would say, well, if your grandpa's telling you that story for the seventh time, it's not because he's crazy or senile. It's because maybe you haven't got the lesson yet. So listen a little closer. But you know what, Mikaela, I just want to thank you for all that you shared. Thank you for showing up as you, for sharing your family with us, the lessons that you learned with your little ones, the lessons that you learned, you know, through your parents, through your own journey, through your own activism, and just all of you. So I just want to say thank you. I know we're going to get closer now to closing up. I want to see if you have any closing remarks. Mika, if you want to close us up in a good way. And just thank you again for everything that you've shared.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everything you guys shared with me too.
I just want to give a really big thank you to our listeners, you know, for always tuning in and hearing our stories and dealing with me and Ariel and our craziness. And I want to give a big thank you to you, Mikaela. My dad was the one that was like, you need to get her on the podcast. And I was like, say less. So we made it happen. I'm really grateful for you making the time to join us today. And as always, thank you, Ariel, for being my amazing co-host. And I appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm excited for our listeners to tune in and really just gain all of the different, really just healing opportunities that we were able to talk about today. Whether you grew up in San Jose, Salinas, Oakland, anywhere, I think Mikaela's story just really resonates with a lot of people. And especially for those that grew up with parents in the movement already. So I definitely appreciate that. And to our listeners, you know, just thank you for continuing to listen to us, continuing to connect. We will do our best to continue to have, you know, our generation on here in terms of what we've been able to not only experience, but overcome and also learn and connect in different ways. I think the theme of this podcast is definitely sit and listen. Whether it's to our little ones who's putting us on timeout or sit and listen to the stories that our elders tell. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. Again, the best way to follow us is on Instagram and Twitter under La Cultura Cura and on Facebook as the National Compadres Network. So thank you all. And until we see you all again, may you all have a blessed week.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.